on Earth, some of the precursors of it, is found everywhere in the universe.
Yeah. So, I want to pause you there because that was something that was one of the notes I wrote down, which is it's fun to think about the idea that these precursors for life are kind of just floating out there. And if they fall in the right place, on the right planet, etc., it makes sense that there would be other life out there. I mean, given the vast expanse, right? That's what is needed. And so, because everybody wants to know, where did life come from? And we kind of, it's almost too confusing to understand. But I think if the ingredients are floating around and they happen to fall in the right spot, that's a fun way to think about it.
It is, and it's given scientists a lot more reason to think that life could permeate the universe. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of which, it is still astounding that we don't know where life came from, essentially meaning how it's on this planet, right? So that's one theory. The other is kind of volcanoes, I think, or somewhere deep in the earth. What do you think, through your research, what is the most likely?
That was one of the most interesting chapters to write because there's so much disagreement. Let's say in the 1940s, which is not that long ago, mm-hmm. we really had no good theories at all. Now we have lots of theories, many of which have very strong points to recommend them. Some believe that life began on the surface of the earth in a variety of different ways. Some believe that life began on the ocean floor at hydrothermal vents, which were like organic matter factories, they think. But there's tremendous disagreement, and the folks who believe that life began on the life surface think that the people who suggest that it began at the bottom of the ocean are out to lunch, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that I have an oar to row there. I don't have an opinion, mm-hmm. but I will tell you that one of the biggest surprises that I got in the book was when I talked to a well-known geologist, and I asked him, "Where do you think life began?" And I expected him to point to some place on Earth, and instead he said, "Well, if I had to put my money on it, I'd probably put my money on Mars."
What?
That's exactly my point. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Right. Well, it turns out he studies the impacts of massive asteroids when they hit planets like Earth. And he was among those who calculated that if an asteroid hit Mars, not all of the area around it would be melted, but there would be huge chunks of rock that would be thrown out of Mars orbit and would find their way to Earth. Scientists have found small meteorite fragments that they've determined did come from Mars. They analyzed them and discovered that they'd never been heated to more than 104 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's like Phoenix, Arizona on a hot day, right?
Like
that's not going to kill life, right? And bacteria can survive in space. Bacteria have been found to survive over 500 days on the International Space Shuttle.
Wow.
And so here's the thing. Early in Earth's existence, it was pummeled by huge asteroids that may have completely vaporized the ocean, or at least vaporized parts of it for a long time. Mars was smaller. It had all the same conditions. It had water and all the same conditions that Earth did. But because it was smaller, it wasn't disturbed in the same way as much. So, and life evolved on Earth so quickly that there are many very well-respected scientists who believe it's very possible that microbes, essentially, evolved first on Mars, found their way to Earth, and that's what seeded life here.
Wow.